Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I'm your English teacher Zia. I hope that you're doing well. You are all ready and set for English 11. My dear learners, if you're following the lectures, you already know that we are done with unit number 1. We have covered SLOs of different competencies of grammar, vocabulary, reading and critical thinking, oral communication, and last but not the least, at the end, we covered SLOs, actually 2 SLOs of writing competency, and we talked about writing argumentative piece or argumentative essay. Now we have moved on our unit number 2. Now again we are going to take the same approach. We will be covering grammar and vocabulary first, then our reading and critical competency, followed by the oral communication, and at the end we will be dealing with SLOs that are critically about the written communication and the writing competency. So I want you to follow all these lectures, and if you have not solved those previous unit 1 resources, the worksheets, the question banks, now it's time to just hurry up and do it quickly and then share it with me. Now let's talk about our lecture number 1. Now this is an introductory lecture, as we always do at the beginning of our new unit or chapter. Now let's see, first we will be covering in the upcoming lecture series, we will be talking about vocabulary, as it is very much important. So the students learning outcome that we will be having is to identify and use adjectival, prepositional and adverbial phrases. Now we are talking about phrase, and we know that phrase, they are group of words and they make sense but in a context, right? So similarly, in order to enhance our phrases, we will be using phrases of adjectival, prepositional and adverbial phrases. Now we know adjectives, preposition, adverbs, they are our parts of speech. They are telling us more about our nouns. They're giving us information. So how about we use these 3 in our phrases to make our phrase elaborative and efficient. We will be learning about these 3, and also we will be talking about using them in different sentences, recognizing them, and also using them in the correct capacity and degree. Now let's talk about our lecture number 2 in the series. Next we have our grammar lecture, our grammar competency. We will be talking about the command of the conventions of standard English capitalization. We will demonstrate that we have command over those conventions of standard English language, those traditions, those concepts that are traditional, and we need to be following them with the proper rules so that we don't make any kind of grammatical error, we don't make any kind of error that our meaning gets lost in the way. Now, we will be talking about capitalizing our words in the written communication correctly. We will be talking about punctuations, all those punctuations that we have been learning from the previous grades, with examples and with distinction between each one of them. Sometimes they are confusing, right? The colon and the semicolon, they are often confused, parentheses, quotations. So we will be seeing all about that. And we will be talking about using your spellings correctly in different varieties of text. Not only the academic, but you can use them in your informal writings and informal letters as well. They are equally important in both these settings. Then we will be talking about another extension of our punctuation marks. We will be talking about hyphens. Hyphens are those little dashes, as you already know, you have been studying it. You will be observing the hyphenation conventions, how we can use the hyphens correctly. Let's say we are using it to join 2 words that we call our compound nouns, and we are using it for making adjectives, etc. So brace yourselves for this lecture. It is very important. Moving on, we will be producing legible work that shows the correct spellings of the conventions of punctuations and capitalization. Again, this is an extension of this SLO. These are 3 different student learning outcomes. They are merged into one because they are serving the same purpose. So it will be very important lecture. You must attend it, and you have to follow the worksheets and all the resources afterwards. Now, for lecture number 3, my dear learners, again, you are familiar with this students' learning outcome. When we are reading any text, now we want to use some strategies in order to get most out of the text. So for that purpose, we will be using the pre-reading and while reading strategies to analyze and explore different layers of meaning within text, including biases and opinions. We have covered it before. It is very much important that you understand that in a text there are different layers. There are some biases, sometimes there are opinions. So we need to be recognizing them and share our opinions about the text. This is about responding to a text, which is very important when we are reading any text, let's say an article, a story, an essay. We now want to respond to it. We respond to it using some questions, with our reviews, with our analysis, with our understanding and opinions. Now, this goes in the reading and critical thinking competency. It's very important that you attend this lecture. We will be using these strategies mentioned over here to get the most out of our text that is under our readership that we are actually currently reading. Now, another one linked with the reading and critical competency, we are talking about responding to the text. It's very important that we ask and answer higher order questions to guide or assess reading. It means when we are reading something, we need to be asking questions of higher order so that we can get the gist, the main idea and the understanding of our text that we just read. We will be using questions like, why is the author saying this right now? Why did the author choose this word particularly? Read with accurate pronunciation, appropriate pitch, and voice variation suitable for fictional and non-fictional text. Now, when we are talking about reading, my dear learners, in this lesson, we will be talking about some particular questions about the author's intent of using a particular question of different kind of things. And if it's something that we want to read, let's say a poem, which we will be attending. Now we want to read it with correct pronunciation, with variations that is required in such reading of such texts. Now, for lecture number 5, again, our reading and critical thinking SLOs are they're more in numbers than other competencies. Here, you will be analyzing organizational patterns in a sentence, in a text. So in a text, you can see some relationships, cause and effect relation, cause, effect, or problem, solution. These structures are very much common in your essays, in your articles. So you need to be seeing these two things, these patterns of these actually, they are paired up together. What is the cause and what is the effect? How can we recognize it in a sentence, and how we can make cause and effect relationship sound more logical and understandable in our text. We will be seeing that how the problems and solutions are linked together. Now we will be going through different kind of texts as example, and we will be covering these two things, these two patterns in our text. Now, moving on, I'm introducing all these students' learning outcomes so that you can prepare your mind, you can prepare yourself for the upcoming lectures, you can search about it, take notes, and prepare yourself before you attend the lecture so you can get most out of it. Now for lecture number 6, again, we are dealing with reading and critical thinking competency. We will identify the rhyming schemes and figurative language in poems. It means that we will be seeing the text type of poems, different poems, we will be seeing them, and also we will see that how we can actually identify the rhyme scheme, because poems are made up of rhymes and rhythms. They have a musicality in them. So we need to be learning about identifying those rhyme schemes and the figurative language, the beautification, the language that we use to beautify the poems. We need to see that also. After that, we will be evaluating how authors use language in such kind of text. They use figurative language. It is different than normal language. We will talk about it, and we will be seeing that how that figurative language is actually impacting on the reader. It leaves a long lasting and a very good effect on the reader. So we will see how those figurative language, those figurative literary devices work, and how it leaves an impact on the reader. Now, for lecture number 7, my dear learners, you will be analyzing multiple interpretations of a story, drama, or poem. We know that we are individuals, we have different interpretations based on our experiences and our understandings and opinions. So there are a lot of interpretations. So how we can analyze those multiple interpretations of the literary text, like the story, the drama, or any poem. We will be seeing the recorded or live production of a play or recorded novel or poetry, evaluating how each version interprets the source text. Then we will be reading to analyze applications, letters, reports, summaries, and biographies or autobiographies and reviews. These are different text types written for different purposes. We will analyze them each one by one with examples, and we will see that how we can produce such letters, reports, summaries, biographies, and autobiographies effectively. Obviously, you will learn much more about them in higher classes at university level, but now you need to be learning about some basics of such text types. Now, this is all about analyzing different texts, poems, dramas, different prose, and also to see that how we can actually read and analyze these different text types. They're very important owing to their differentiation and their variety. Now, let's talk about oral communication. We know, my dear learners, that the competency of having an oral communication, a conversation, to be a good speaker and a good listener is very important. So for that purpose, you need to be very much involved in this lecture. It has to be very interactive, unless the last time. Now that was the first one. Now in this one, I expect you to be very much involved in the lesson. Prepare yourself, and so that we can clear it. It says to demonstrate attentive listening skills. And while we are working in groups and taking turns to speak with standard pronunciation. Now, we are not talking about accent here. We are talking about pronunciation, the way we should be pronouncing, pronunciating each word clearly according to the standard English tradition and convention. We will be talking about having good attentive listening skills. Now, we know that there's a difference between listening and hearing, right? So in order to achieve good listening skills, attentive and active listening skills, we need to be following some rules, some conventions, and also the convention of taking turns when you are engaged in a conversation with somebody. Either you are in a debate, a discussion, you need to be following that, and we will be also talking about pronunciation. We will respond to text for different purposes, including arguments and discussions. Now, we know that we communicate and conversate for different purposes. Sometimes it's an argument, sometimes it's a discussion, it's a debate, or something like that. So, in order to do that, we will be seeing that how, when we are reading something, how we can respond to such text. If we are reading a debate, if we are reading any kind of argumentative essay or piece, how we can respond to that particular scenario, we will be learning about that. Either they are arguments or your conventional discussions. Now, at the end, with the competency of writing, my dear learners, this will be our lecture number 9, and it says that you have to write a descriptive composition. Composition means the writing, and descriptive means writing that involves a lot of description, where you are describing things in detail so the reader can actually visualize it with your vivid verbs and your amazing specific words. You will be seeing that how we can give physical description to things and characteristics or traits of a person or any object, how we can move from general to specific method. Now this is an approach, we will talk about it, that in your writing, how can you use the general to specific method in order to compose a very well written piece. We will be using correct punctuation and spelling by using the process approach. We are already familiar with the process approach. It's a 3-stage approach with pre-writing or planning for writing, then we go for drafting, and then at the end we move forward to the post-writing techniques and strategies. So for the first part, the pre-writing and planning for writing part, we will be talking about these different approaches and strategies like brainstorming, mind mapping, and writing, and how do we write a first draft of our writing. We will be producing clear and coherent writing in which the development, organization, and style are appropriate to the task, purpose, and audience. We will be seeing the intensity and the variation of the task, why we are writing it, what's our purpose, and what are we writing for, what kind of audience we are dealing with. So we will be talking about that. First, we'll talk about the descriptive composition, followed by the process approaches first step, which is the pre-writing phase, the planning for writing phase, and then we will be seeing that how we can effectively write a first draft. Now, thank you so much for listening. I hope that we've had a great time in this lecture series of unit number 2. So till now, if you have any kind of confusion or if you have feedback about the previous unit number 1, you can straight away put forward your suggestions and your comments. Is everything clear? Yes. Zumit, is everything clear? Okay, that's good. I hope there's no confusion left. This was just an introductory lecture. I introduced you with the SLOs that we will be covering. Yes. Okay, thank you so much for listening. I'll see you on the other side with lecture number 1. You have to be prepared and solve your unit number 1's resources. They're very important and submitted to me. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.